And hello, everybody. I have my cup of coffee, and I don't know what to do or say other than hello and happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day. And it's a hot one out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, at about, I don't know, I think it's supposed to reach up to a cool temperature today. Um, let's see what the temp is going to be. I know it's pretty cool. It's not as bad. We're currently at about 110 Fahrenheit. So, yeah, that's pretty low for Las Vegas at this time. I think we're supposed to go like into 117 Fahrenheit tomorrow or today. I don't know. Something like that. It's getting too hot to even think. But I'm outside right now in this very cool weather, drinking a nice hot cup of coffee. And no, I'm not drinking anything else. But okay, so just to inform you about what's going on, I will be playing this weekend at the Sunset Station here in Las Vegas with the Big Horn Section Band, uh, Delta Bound, and the Big Easy Horns. We're bringing it back for a night of dancing and good times, and like the old days, back in the days of the Ovation year. God, that's over a decade ago. Well over, close to 50, well, 16 years ago when I used to play that gig. Anyway, that's that. Um, I've been creating a project also called Mr. Nobody. And it's something, I don't know, it's personal, but I'm trying not to let it be too personal because it's something I want to share with everybody. And once I start sharing it's no longer just belongs to me. It's whomever accepts it and wants to be a part of what Mr. Nobody is about. And just to give you an idea, it's currently the idea is it's based on all the alternate realities, uh, basically the choices that I have made in life and this current reality that I live in. As to why I'm here, I don't know. It's it's based off the concept of all of the decisions that I've made have led me up to this point. So we'll start with the arrow of time and we'll go back in time. And this one starts with Mr. Nobody, as if, let's say, he was around throughout time. He's timeless, Mr. Nobody, right? Um, I identify with Mr. Nobody. I'm not necessarily Mr. Nobody. I think he represents anybody that believes sort of in this ideology, or not believe it, but accept it, maybe in the perspective of it, artistically, if I can put it that way. Living in, you know, alternate alternate realities, choices that we make, and what lead us up to this point. So, like I say, this one starts out in the 1920s. Prohibition era is where we're going with the beginning of this. See where it goes, and the music based around it is going to be based around that 1920s prohibition era sound back in the days of the speakeasies, and and we'll see where it goes from there. So it's been there on my mind for a long time, and now I'm putting it down on something graphically and fon- uh, phonically, I guess you can say. So there you go. Oh, I have a few people joined. We have Paula Grimm. That's a wonderful name. Happy 4th of July to you. We have Renee Churchill. Um, That is somebody that sounds familiar. Hi, Mike, she says. Hey, Renee. We have Joanne. We have Connie, Pam, Laura, Jennifer. There's Jen. And blow you a kiss back. Um, really, we have an Australian named Johnny on here. Johnny Bentley. Uh, he says, Kia ora from Australia, Michael. Fellow Muso, great to hear you're creating and sharing again. All the way from Australia. Man, I forget that this thing that I'm on goes out there, doesn't it? I wonder if it broadcasts eventually out to. It will. It'll get to another nation somewhere in the universe, somewhere eventually, many, many light years from now. But Australia, well, that's cool, man. Thank you, Johnny. And I'll keep you informed. There we go. Let's see. Um, I'm reading some of this, and I love you too, Nancy. Thank you. And yeah, here we are on this hot 4th of July. I said cool 4th of July. It is going to be about 117, they predict, at the hottest, somewhere between here and tomorrow, here in beautiful Las Vegas. And I have my hot cup of Joe once again. I am crazy. Okay, so what else have I been doing? I don't like talking about myself, but I got to say something because there's no one else here. Um, the projects that I've been on have been numerous. I have so many irons in the fire that I love throwing in there on the creative side of things. So one of them that I know some of my friends, they they probably think that I have a problem. There's something going on, but I've been into my. Of course, I'm into ancient history. I've always loved history. History is one of my big topics. And a lot of people always ask me why I'm into that. When I was younger, I've always asked questions. But when I was younger, I always asked the questions based on the stories I was told, like a lot of you who come from Jewish and Judeo Christian um, beliefs. Even Islamic people would have a lot of these similar questions, as to, that we're all told, about the beginning of everything. And one of the stories that always fascinated me, which is like most people, was the story of Moses. And and throughout my life, I've been fascinated with what what was that and why, And the more I ask those questions, the more questions come than answers. And and I have to focus, and I have to choose what approach to come from in this. And I come from different perspectives. I try to, but I try to be as logical as I can. I'm not an academic. I have not been through the doors or blessed by any any sort of scholarships to go to college or anything like that. I've not been in that world. My world is just fascinated with finding the truth on this. Not that it means anything really ultimately to me. I want to know the truth on it. And everybody in the scholarly world tends to have their own opinions, to put it lightly, on this subject. So when I speak about it, which I love to, it can be quite controversial. I tend to leave people begging the question purposely in some cases, because I want them to know the conclusion pretty quickly so that they can beg the question. Um, I I want to do that because, and you have to understand, I don't want to lose audience at times, but then when I do that, it can easily offend people too, because people's beliefs, their the foundation of their core beliefs are built on these stories, you know. And but I want you to know, and I want everyone out there to know that I do come from the most logical approach that I can. That means history is fiction, and it needs to be looked at as that. And I am to criticize everything that is written, for they are just words. It is not to just exclude them, though. There's something you can find when you start seeing patterns and rhythms, algorithms, with the way people like Josephus writes, Flavius Josephus, for example. You can start to somewhat discerning, listening to other scholars who are very critical on these issues. Um, I want to hear the critical points of views. They tend to have a lot of logic attached to them, and so that's where I go. But I'm not. I'm in my pursuit of it all. I learn these fun things, like I learn about not only the languages, but I learn within the language. I learn the cultures, of course, and I like learning what we know about the cultures. And one of those are, what were these things called? Arcs, you know. What were these? That's a Greek word. Bark is another word. It's a boat, right? But the word they called it in Egypt was a wia, um, and that means a sacred bark, which is a sacred small boat. Or I guess they could be very big and full size too, but most of the time they were small, and they were adorned with a god, where they were typically put in a temple. Every temple in Egypt, or mainly temples in that time, would have a holy of holies, and that's where they would place these arcs. And that was very common in Egypt throughout the 2,600 years of its dynasties. They would put these arcs in there, dedicated to a god. And so I've always been fascinated with arcs and orwias, and what their functions were. The Egyptians looked at them as, like a type of machine, a spiritual machine, and they would encode them with the correct spells. And the way they would put the spells together, as you know, the way hieroglyphics are written, they're really cool looking. They look like wired up systems in themselves. They're just so mathematically. I mean, there's symmetry going on, and everything that you see there, and it makes it look very technical and correct to be the best way to get to the gods. Right, through that technique. And I think outsiders saw that too with the ancient Egyptians, um, because even Phoenicians, or Canaanites, and Sumerians, they had their own versions of this, still in no comparison to what the ancient Egyptians, and I'm talking about before the Ptolemaic era, before Greece got its part into Egypt. I'm talking about, it was really advanced looking art and fascinating. And so I study arcs, and I will conclude it on that I just study them, and I'm fascinated with them. And that's just one of my many, many fascinations. And what do I do with all of that? Build an arc, and I did, or I'm trying to. I built one, and I gaudied it up, really gaudy for the gods. That's what you're supposed to do, right? But then I stripped it down, and now I'm going to refabricate it. This time I'm going to use copper on the exterior of it, trying to do it in as traditional as I can, but into what era of what we as are we talking about? And there's very little known about the ancient arts of the Egyptians. What little is known out there, I mean, there's a good bit known, but it's still, you know, 2,600 years, more than that actually, of them doing these traditions, and of which we carried on, and we still carry on all these awesome traditions today. Going, why do we do these things? Well, a lot of them we can blame on the ancients, but let's see. We see. Oh, there's Jerry Pasick. Happy 4th of July to you, and happy 4th to everybody. Yeah, all right. Here's to you. All right. So, um, I've been playing with color techniques also in the world of art, which I'm still trying to understand what my medium is, what I like to work with, because I'm just not as experienced in the visual art, the graphical world of art. My art goes into audio and sound and music. At least most of my time has been spent in creatively in that. I have spent a lot of time in the visual art world, but not as much, nowhere near as I have the audio. So I like to go, it's a hobby, just like music was a hobby. But this is a hobby, it's a true hobby. And I like color theory and working with it and seeing and experimenting with color theory. And I've been doing that recently, just playing with different mediums of color before I get into some of the ancient mediums that I want to work with that I've acquired, um, because I don't want to ruin these these dyes that I've ordered are rare, and they're like called classical dyes, from the classical era, Greco-Roman dyes, azure being lapis lazuli, the precious lapis lazuli. Really need to get my hands on some really good lapis. The one that I got, I'm really not satisfied with the cleaning process if they did that to it, because it's just not as lapis as I would like. So I want to look around a little more for that. And that's, by the way, when I'm talking about the blue color, the pigment powder lapis lazuli. Fascinating color to look up, and the history of it. Um, yeah, let's see. Renee Levine, she puts something interesting here. See, she throws out what I call, or what's called in logic, it's called assuming the outcome, which she's leaving me begging the question by saying the ark has nothing to do with Moses. And I think I know what she's talking about on that. I think I know exactly what she's talking about, and I agree. If I know where you're going with that, I think the ark myself, if I can further my thought on it, just for just for Renee here, I think the ark was something that did come out of Egypt. I think it had something to do with, and maybe you have a different story on this. I'd like to hear your perspective. There's so many perspectives, but from the archaeological work that's been done out there that I've seen, and I put the time frames in, what I'm seeing is something that did come out of Egypt, but it was Canaanite. We see a temple in Egypt in a place called Elephantine, which is an island. And I think it was around somewhere between 800 to 600 BCE that there was a temple to Yahweh. But the temple was not just to Yahweh, it was also dedicated to two other gods, I believe mainly goddess. One was called Asham Bethel. I know that because the name Asham in Hebrew means ashamed or guilty, guilt, which I'm assuming the word ashamed comes from, but Asham. But yet we can't find much, or if anything at all, on this. I can't on this Asham Bethel, whoever the god or goddess was. But I know there was another goddess in the temple too. So we're looking at, and this temple was between 8 to 600 BC. If that be the case, and then before that, at whatever time, I don't know. I think the Hyksos had something to do with this long before the time period that I'm speaking about this temple, because we see in 1450 BCE, we see an inscription that says Shasu of Yahweh. This would have been under the reign of Amenhotep III. Um, I think that places it around 1450 roughly BCE. And then we hear, of this movement of these Habirus or Apirus, as the Egyptians called them, which could be controversially the word Hebrew is what they're saying, or trying, well, our version of the word today is. But were they the original Hebrews, and who were the Shasu? Were they the original Israelites? No matter, these were Canaanite people, and I think that is indisputable, that they were Canaanites. Were they Israelites? Were they the Israelites that we know them as? Who is Yahweh? And for those to claim that Yahweh is one, what is the word Elohim in Hebrew? That's plural, you know. So we go, that means gods, that means many gods, El, and we can stay on the controversial definitions of that word right there. El, Al, Il, however you want to say it. It comes in variants. It's a Canaanite word of a Canaanite god, the ultimate creator God, the one God of all that created all the other gods, including Yahweh, and a lot of belief systems that we find archaeologically. And that even goes up to early Christian beliefs, and Gnostic beliefs um, were built around this two separate gods there. And you go, well, if this is monotheism, then we have to question what the definition is to monotheism and monoliterism and those sort of things. And it fascinates me. But I think maybe if that's where you're going there, on that the ark has nothing to do with Moses. And the name Moses is controversial too. It has many. It could be Musha, which is the most popular version, Musa or Musha, um, which means water child in Egyptian. They believe that's what it could be. But then we see the word Moses also in the form of Moses in ancient Egypt, which means a boy born of. It specifically means a boy. By saying mus means born of, and you add the extra s on it, and then it means a boy. And we see that commonly in Egypt. Ramses, his name is Ra Moses. It has the word Moses in it, and a lot of them Tutmosis, anything Amen Moses. So you're born of these gods, but when you're a boy born of the gods, um, when it's Moses. But the controversy on that word Moses also lies on, is the extra S a Hellenistic S, as they call it, because the Greeks like to throw S's on the end of all those Egyptian words. So we don't know. It's more than likely it's Musha, and it was Hellenized with the S, I believe. Moses. It became more than likely. But it could be the other. I don't know. And then there's a word called Mosai or Moshai, Mashai, which in ancient Egyptian also means mass exodus, by the way. So we can say that the word Moses could also just be a movement, led by maybe someone named Joshua, who there never was a Moses. Who knows? I mean, this is all hypotheticals, um, because there's just no one popular out there like the Moses that we hear of today in ancient times, and there should be, but we don't see it. And if it's there, then it's hidden somewhere, and we have to decipher it. And I think that's what's going on. Anywho, I get to talking too much on that subject. Um, let's see. Doobity doobity doo. Art, and that's about all of the world that I live in, and I stay out of everything else the best I can. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. Come out and see me Saturday at Club Madrid, 8 to 9:30. Bring your dancing shoes. It'll be with the big band, big horn section. I have Jimmy Trippy going to be with me singing. Nikki Logan, of course, my girl. Um, I've got a special for everybody. A lot of people don't know, and it's late in the game, so I can go ahead and tell you. I wanted to make it a surprise, but it's Lenny Lopez who agreed to come and join. Lenny from the band Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, and he will be gracing me and everybody else, man, you guys, with his awesome, beautiful voice. I love Lenny's voice, and talented musician. We're gonna have a really great time. Joe Scriba and the horns, and yeah, yeah. Eric Runquist, Bruce Wallace, Bill Zappia, and Jimmy McIntosh on guitar. Normally, I'd have Jimmy Trippy on guitar, but Jimmy Trippy, he's my golden boy. So I'm moving, and he said he will gracefully move over to the drums, and of which he has a master's in. So he is a master. He is a master. So we're going to let Lord Trippy to the drums. All right. So anyway, um, he's the maestro. What's I was just thinking of that Seinfeld episode. The maestro. He's our maestro, our golden boy. Anyway, come and check it out. And I don't have much more to say. I do, but you don't want to hear it. It's just going to bore all of you to death. I go off into weird chants about ancient times, because that's where my mind wants to go right now, man. Everything in the world is just too intense. There's not a lot of comedy going on right now. Too many people getting offended or something, and me, I'm just getting tired of all of that. So I'm going off into places that I find happy. I go off into the Jewish wars, you know, the fall of the Masada and the fall of the temple. Yeah, it's not good stories. That's horrible stories. It's horrible, but I get closer to a perspective from someone else's point of view. That's all. It's still the question. Anyway, I'm gonna go, and I love all of you. Happy 4th of July, and I would sing something patriotic for you guys, but I'm just being honest. I don't know if I'm gonna get hit with copyright and somebody coming after me with some sort of penalty, which I've been hit with before. So whether the song be um, available for me to do or not, I'd be getting something from somebody. I've been getting a lot of crap from the social media stuff, so I have to be careful with that. But um, I think it's okay to say Happy 4th of July, and I think it's okay to be patriotic still. I hope so. And I love this country, and I love everybody that has died and has put their life in the front lines for this country and for our freedoms. And by God, people, do not forget what this day is about. It's it's a day of remembrance. It's a day of remembering those who have fallen to give us, you and me, our great freedom. If you do not know what this means, I don't know what to tell people out there in the new generations. Please, guys, please, please take it easy on the flag, man. Take it easy. All right. Love you all. Happy 4th.